challenge myself by forcing myself to use some of these scrapbooking slash card making supplies that I have in my stash. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to take this binder that I have here that has all kinds of stickers and die cuts, and I'm just going to flop her open, and whatever page it opens to, I am going to make a card with you using that item. Ready? Go. Okay, so we've got a couple choices here. Gold and green and pink butterflies. We've got puppy paws, and we have dragonflies. So let's see what I come up with. So the first thing that I did was take a piece of solid cardstock, and I have these Doris, I don't know how you pronounce it, embossing folders, and it has these little swirly lines on it, and just remind me of how a dragonfly would fly. So I'm putting that through my Sizzix machine, and I had to finagle the backgrounds a little bit back and forth because it is two different brands, the Sizzix die cutting machine and a Doris folding or embossing folder. So I had to go back and forth with these different folders to figure out the thickness. You want it to have enough pressure to do the impression, but you don't want it to be so thick that you break your machine and over emboss it, which actually can cut up the paper a little bit. So now I'm taking my same Sizzix machine, I've switched out my plates, and I'm going to do a leaf thinlet. I specifically chose this one because it has a curve to it. So I'm going to cut out 6 of these, but I ended up only needing 4. And because they're curved, they're actually going to curve kind of in a wreath form around that doily. Notice that I've actually didn't take the leaves out before I did the thinlet again. I can do up to 2 with this particular one before I need to punch it out. And I actually use a jewelry bead reamer to pop them out of the die, but you can use anything sharp. So here I decided to use some glitter paper because the dragonfly wings are really shiny and everything else was kind of coming out really matte. So all I'm doing is just tearing the paper. You can wet it if you want to, but I didn't. I wish I would have cut this down to size before I tore it because I ended up cutting it a little bit too short. But that's okay because I just trimmed the whole card later on and you'll see that. So now I've decided to do a little bit of a border on either side of that white glitter paper just to give it a little bit more dimension and make it pop off of that card. See here, I actually had to cut that paper down a little bit, the whole card down a little bit to fit that glitter paper. So now what I'm doing is I'm just taking some Eileen's tacky glue and a brush, and I'm applying that to the back of these leaves. You can use whatever kind of glue you like. I just like to use a piece of scrap paper when I'm doing that so I don't get glitter on my work surface. And I'm just going to repeat that, and I ended up again using 4 of these leaves instead of all 6, but that's okay. I'll have some extra leaves already cut out for another project. So I'm just going to tack those down, and if necessary, I will just add a little bit of extra glue on the spots that I miss. And I just repeat that 4 times. So now I'm just adding my dragonfly stickers. And these stickers I've had for many, many, many years. And so I actually had to go back in and add a little bit of glue because they were starting to come apart. So I decided that that white doily just wasn't popping enough off of the glitter. So I'm going in with a Versamark inking pad, which I've gotten from Stampin' Up. I've had this thing for longer than I've had my son, and he's 24, and it still works great. I'm having to pull up the leaves, or not the leaves, but the wings of the dragonflies in order to be able to use my embossing heat gun. on that embossing powder. And I didn't do it on the first dragonfly, and actually, because it's foil, it actually warped the dragonfly's wings. So you'll notice on the second one, I'm actually holding those wings back so that I can get that embossing powder in there, and also so my heat gun doesn't actually heat the wings and bend them. So now I am having to go in, because I bent those wings, and having to glue those back down. I just used a little bit of Eileen's tacky glue and then weighted it down. Here you can see I'm actually using the bottle to hold the wings down until they glue, and I'm using a lighter for one of them. So I had to do that for 3 out of the 4, and it only took a couple minutes for them to glue all the way down. So now I'm just taking a coordinating ink and I'm using a happy birthday stamp, and I just stamp that on a little piece of white paper, and then in that same ink I'm going to go around the edges just to give it a little bit of a border. I don't like doing just white on white or even white on anything really. I like giving it a little bit of an edge, and using ink is a really easy way to do that. So I'm using a glue runner to put the doily down, but then I realized with that glitter paper, it wasn't going to stick very well. I've had that happen to me in the past. So I'm just using a glue dot in a couple random places to make sure. And then I'm taking a couple pop dots. I love dimensional pop dots, and adding that to the back of my greeting, and I'm popping that on the bottom. Here I am just taking a stretchy cord with some beads on it. This is actually came off of a Hallmark card. Sometimes I like to pull the embellishments off of those and reuse them. And this one's really easy to use because it stretches, so I just tie it a little tighter and knot it, and I'm all done. What do you think?